we've seen how horrendous the ICE deployment is across America. The attacking of civilians, the demonizing of, people as agitators or domestic terrorists because they don't comply to police state that was orchestrated in 2003, post 9/11 era, built up of the Patriot Act, built up of this mass surveillance, and just been bloated up end to no end without any hesitation, without any, real watching of what these ICE officials are doing, how it's being constructed, how they're just hiring people at a whim. They're not even properly trained. Some are just rather skeptical of, even if they are people that should be in this country. There's speculation of illegals joining ICE raids and joining, being an ICE agent so that they can protect themselves of their crimes and whatnot. So it is just horrendous. And we're getting a look at the next chapter of this, which should raise eyebrows for everybody, regardless if you're on the side of this or not. So, coming out Bloomberg here says the next phase of ICE's $38 billion detention plan, centralized DHS owned warehouses. So you've heard all these stories about how they're buying up properties across America, particularly these large warehouses, as temporary facilities to extort the illegals that they're capturing so that they could properly be detained and sent back to their countries. Well, that isn't exactly the case. And we're going to show you in this segment here how they're actually manipulating people to think that, oh, it's just a facility to try to deport people. But eventually, it's going to come and tackle after you. That why they're getting these giant facilities, if it's just temporary, why they're getting all this money if it's just temporary, they're just going to kick a bunch of illegals out. Well, they're going to have to do something because they're not going to, let ICE dissipate. They're not going to destroy ICE. They're not going to restrict them. So they're going to start going after other people and detain them. And it just seems like all the conspiracies we've heard about FEMA camp. Well, we'll get into that. So underneath it says GEO Group and Core Civic face competition as the agency looks to dramatically reduce the number of immigrant jails by shifting to massive warehouses. Uh, Immigration and Custom Enforcement's plans to shrink its network of more than 200 detention facilities, most of them privately operated, to just 34 government-owned sites, according to local officials briefed this week of the plan, a move that would affect longtime private prison giants like GEO Group and Core Civic Incorporated. Well, we know how awful they are. I mean, anyone that has ever seen the movie 13, but you can go check it out on YouTube. It's for free. It's a Netflix presented documentary, but I guess they put it on YouTube for free. Talks directly about the private prison industry. It's just absolutely horrendous. If carried out, the shift would replace the current patchwork of local jails and privately run prisons with a centralized system of larger facilities, most of them industrial warehouses owned by the Department of Homeland Security. The majority of people currently in ICE custody are in facilities run by GEO or Core Civic. David Keener, the mayor of the Social Circle, Georgia, city manager Eric Taylor, and city attorney Jay Crowley say they were told of the 34 facility plan during a meeting this week with the DHS delegation led by Tim Kaiser, deputy chief of staff at U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. The meeting focused on the federal government's proposal to convert a large warehouse in the city about 45 miles east of Atlanta into an immigration detention center that residents and city leaders oppose. DHS does not immediately respond to a request for comment on the details shared about the meeting. Of course they wouldn't. So there's all the proposed facilities they show on the map here. Uh, the black dots are the ones that are canceled. So there was a large one in Texas, Missouri, Utah, Oklahoma, Virginia that got canceled. Uh, the red ones are the ones that got sold. So there's a larger one by the Texas border. There's the one in Arizona. There's a few in Pennsylvania. There's more being planned in Michigan, Indiana, looks like, Minnesota, New York, New Hampshire, Florida. So you get the picture here. A person familiar with the administration's plans confirmed that ICE will now rely on primarily on government-owned facilities, but that private companies will maintain a role, which may include providing services such as medical care and security. You know, that public-private partnership that everyone just loves so much. Fascism. Just love it so much, because what can go wrong with that? Rival companies are already competing for the contracts to convert and operate the warehouses DHS has purchased. The consolidation would represent a significant new detail in the administration's $38 billion detention re-engineering initiative, which was revealed last week. President Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill last year allocated $45 billion to detention expansion. The planning document showed that the redesigned system would give the government a 92,600 bed capacity through 8 large-scale detention centers capable of holding up to 10,000 detainees each. So, judging from the schematics of these warehouses, do you really think that this is for temporary? Do you really think this is only for illegal migrants? Because, as they said, these are supposed to be detention facilities to house the migrants until they get deported back. Well, if they're getting deported back, what are they going to do with these warehouses once all the immigrants are gone? Oh, that's right. They're going to expand the services and start going after Americans. Hence why they got to rile up people and call people domestic terrorists. Why they're going after the agitators, the American citizens that just want to live in some sort of harmony, trying to survive the economic downturn that America has turned itself into, and how MAGA's just been an absolute joke. They're just trying to live a normal life of what they got, and now they're getting the script flipped around to say that they're domestic terrorists, they're agitators. Which, ironically, was a word that was coined by the Biden administration. So it goes to show you, Trump was not going to end the deep state. Trump was not going to be different than the rest of the establishment. Trump's a continuation. It's like Biden's a continuation. Just like Obama was a continuation of Bush. It's never going to end. It's never going to end electorally. It's going to end by public pressure. Hence why people are protesting out in the streets because of this. Because they know that it's going to turn around and they're going to become targets. They're going to be the ones locked up in this. They've already made measures about homeless people, how we can just raggle them up and throw them in these detention facilities, and then God knows what do to them. And it's just going to keep expanding and expanding and expanding. Why else would they get a 10,000 person unit? Why else would they get a 92,600 bed capacity warehouse if all they're going to do is collect the immigrants and deport them back to their countries? Why would you do that? Oh, that's right. Because it's eventually coming for you. Currently, the largest ICE detention facility in the country is a tent camp on an El Paso military base that detains about 3,000 people daily. So that's what it used to be. That's what it used to be. That is temporary. That I can understand. So why are they spending billions of dollars buying these warehouses? Because it's eventually coming to you. Eventually coming to you. The move to government-owned jails also creates an immigration detention infrastructure that could outlast the Trump administration and its mass deportation efforts. In past administrations, including during Trump's first term, immigration authorities said they were routinely forced to release many thousands of migrants into the United States, in part because of a lack of jail capacity in the past 2 decades. Congress has approved spending for about 30,000 to 45,000 immigration detention beds a year. The new government-owned network would more than double that capacity. Well, as we have now learned, because they just recently did it, they could have just shut off the border. They could have just shut down the border. They could have put more agents down at the border to prevent this. Instead of having this waste, instead of having this conundrum, instead of having ICE and DHS buying up these warehouses at a maximum rate to house thousands upon thousands of detainees. Do you think that they're all going to be illegal migrants? No. Do you think it's going to stop after Trump gets out of office? No. And what's going to happen if a Democrat gets back in office? Are they going to stop these detention facilities? Are they going to say it's bad? No. They're going to probably use it against you, the mega chuds. They're cheering this on. This is what people need to understand, that your team, regardless of what team you're on, is not in favor of you. It's a continuation of their donor class. It's a continuation of the private prison industry that are coordinated with this, that want more detainees. So eventually, after they're done with the illegals, they're going to start going after American citizens. That is what's happening, folks. This is what people need to be aware of. And how it's also taking a toll on Canada. So CBC Watcher says CBC tries once again to police Canadian businesses operating in the United States. Previously, it was a Canadian supplier of armed vehicles to ICE. Now they're angry that a Jim Patterson company is selling a building to ICE in Hanover, Virginia. We're even seeing another BC company in the process of selling one of its American warehouses to ICE. Now, I disagree with the CBC Watcher. And I actually give credit to pointing this out. Because why is Jim Patterson, who is a very, very successful BC oligarch, he runs the grocery stores, he has media groups, he has a lot of things, he has warehouses in the United States. Is he just deliberately selling it off to ICE because he just thinks ICE is good? Or is the Trump administration pressuring Jim Patterson and others to sell off these warehouses? That's what needs to be scrutinized about this. So, BBC News mentioned about this. Let's take a look.
The only BC company that's seeing backlash for relations with ICE. We're even seeing another BC company in the process of selling one of its American warehouses to ICE, and there's a development on that storyline today.
Yeah, so last night, hundreds of people gathered at a Hanover County administration building. This is in Virginia, and this is in relation to a warehouse that's owned by a Canadian, again, BC-based group, the Patterson Group. This was local leadership essentially opposing the conversion of a warehouse that we're showing you now into an ICE holding facility, a huge 17.5-hectare site in Hanover County. 51 square meters is the industrial complex on that site, again owned by Vancouver-based Jim Patterson Group. Patterson Group says that they only learned about this when the full plans came to be after the fact. The Department of Homeland Security sent a letter to Hanover County saying that they want.
So Jim Patterson, who had this warehouse that he was going to sell to the U.S. government, was never told what this facility was going to be used for. So ICE and DHS lied to Jim Patterson. They're withholding information. And Jim Patterson just thought, I was going to sell this venture to the United States government that I didn't want to partake in that. He was purposely misled because once the information got out that this is going to be a detention center, Jim Patterson backed out. Said, no, I'm not going to sell this to you if it's going to be used for a prison. I liked how they said it was a holding facility. And just to remind people, why would they need such a giant warehouse in all these areas if it's only for temporary uses? If they're only just capturing illegal migrants to just deport them out of the country, why would they need a giant warehouse? That's right, because it's not about the illegals. It's about you. They want to build these concentration camps. They want to turn your world into a digitized Auschwitz. I've been saying this from the start. That's why Palantir is involved in this. That's where the Golden Dome is involved in this. The technocratic state. You think the New World Order is ending. It's not ending. The baton is just passing off to the technocratic dorks that sit in their, Miami beachfront condos and do their dirty work in their underwear with a laptop. That's what's happening, folks. It's no longer the industrial barons of the past. It's now these psychotic, deranged, sociopathic mental cases that now have grasped the baton of world dominance. That's what's happening, folks. And they're turning into a technocratic, feudalist society where now you're going to be under the watch of AI technology, the billionaires that are coding this, and they're going to decide your fate of whether you get to live as a proper citizen of the country or if you're going to be detained. Sounds a lot like something China would impose, right? Sounds like China, what they'd scare us about, or the Soviet Union, or Nazi Germany. But it's happening right now, and these people, the Trump administration, DHS, ICE, all these people are doing things that Hitler could only imagine as wet dreams. That's how crazy that is. And the only reason Hitler couldn't do it because they don't have the technology. They didn't have the technology then that they do now. And that's what makes this so unbelievably just gut-wrenching. Here's another instance. This is a news report where they just bought a facility in Pennsylvania. Again, think of the schematics of the building and remind yourself, do you think that this is about illegal immigration?
Officials have confirmed that ICE has bought a warehouse in Upper Burnett Township. The township solicitor says that warehouse is located on Mountain Road, right near the I-78 Charlottesville interchange. He says the township was not involved in the sale and has not been told about any plans for the site. County records, though, show ICE paid more than $87 million for the building. Over the weekend, Bloomberg reported that it is one of 23 warehouses across the U.S. that ICE is buying to serve as immigrant detention centers. ICE used to lease space for a detention center in Bern Township that closed back in 2023.
Amazing. It's amazing. They're buying all these warehouses that I thought we were supposed to bring back manufacturing. I thought I was supposed to bring back jobs. I thought that's what all the tariffs are about. I thought that's what make America great again. Like, this should be housing employees and working and facilitating, building up the economy. Oh, no, we're just going to buy them out. The government's going to buy them out, partner with private prison industries, and use it as a concentration camp, as a facility to obtain and capture anybody of our choosing. That is just insane, folks. That is just insane. Even for people that are not up on this, for anyone to look to see the process, like, people have come to realize that having ICE swarm in from city to city, county to county, going down neighborhoods, cracking the skulls of people, it's not helping the situation. It's not even capturing as many illegals as Obama did. And the reason why Obama was successful is because they did not storm down city streets They didn't crack the heads of Americans. They didn't call them domestic terrorists. They didn't freak out about that. And you want to know the best way to solve mass migration is go after the employers. Go after the companies. Go after the NGOs. You notice how none of them got arrested. None of them have been detained. No ICE raids have ever went to a Home Depot and went after the employer saying, hey, why are you illegally scapegoating eligible American workers to hire cheap labor? Why? None of that's ever got addressed. But they'll keep buying these facilities. And they'll get chuds to promote this. So here's Mega Voice, for instance, saying, breaking, President Trump's ICE buys a huge 418,000 square foot warehouse in Arizona to help with mass deportation. The Trump administration does not seem to be slowing down. Liberals can't stand this. Yeah. Keep saying that when you get detained. Because if Democrats get control, which more than likely they will after the trench, the horrificness of the current Trump administration, if they get back in power, you don't think they're going to use that facility to go after you? Or lives of TikTok. ICE just purchased a massive 418,000 square foot warehouse in Arizona, and the Democrats are losing their minds. Try harder, libs. ICE is here to stay. I mean, talk about the utter, just complete ignorance of everything. The utter ignorance of everything. These are psychologically tortured, brainwashed cattle just trying to cheerlead for their team. They don't realize what's happening. They don't realize that this has been going on for years. They don't realize that all administrations were heading down this path. They just needed a buffoon like Trump, a salesman like Trump, to disguise the horrific pain and suffering that all administrations were going to put on you and make it seem like it's MAGA. It's for America that we build these giant containment facilities to eventually house you. Because we'll make up some excuse to punish you. Here's Will Bunch saying an ex-Big Lots warehouse for cheap consumer junk is bought by ICE to ship as many as 7,500 handcuffed human beings as the Trump regime builds a U.S. gulag Apiacho. The unthinkable comes to Pennsylvania coal country, my special report. So, again, I thought we were supposed to bring back manufacturing, but it turns out we're killing more manufacturing. These warehouses are going to become vacant, and then they're just going to buy it out and bring people for detainment. And it's not just illegal migrants. Because again, the illegals are supposed to be the ones that get deported. So why do they need this giant facility if you're just going to deport each and every one of them? Oh, that's right. Because it's eventually going to house you. It's eventually coming for you, folks. You just don't see it yet because you're completely diluted and brainwashed. But eventually, what goes around comes around, and it's going to bite you in the ass very hard. That's why people are protesting about this. That's why there's been reports about this. That's why I'm speaking about this, because it's you have to know this now before they come after you. So, luckily, there are some based people that aren't blinded by their teams or blinded by, the Trump celebratory syndrome. There's not just Trump derangement syndrome. There's also the Trump cult syndrome that, Trump can do no wrong. The administration can't do no wrong because all the previous administrations were so bad. Well, here's Patriot Voice. This is a based account. From my understanding, he's just a, Christian conservative person. It says here, an NWO dissident, OG truther, watchman, Navy vet, American first, Christ is king. So pretty based guy. Here's what he says. And this is what people need to understand. It says DHS is acquiring and building out massive warehouses in multiple states across the country, building out the police state prison. And that should be alarming, very alarming to every American. Despite what they have told you, these facilities are not solely or even primarily going to be used for illegals. They are detention facilities, as in long-term deterrent camps. That's what I've been saying. Why would you need these giant warehouses if you're going to deport these people out of the country? It logically does not make sense. They are planning for and even anticipating a time with periods of great sustained manufactured civil unrest. This is clear by the memo that went out to the USPS in January. That's the post office. It is imminent, and the anger from the Epstein fallout will only fuel that. For those who aren't aware, the DOD directive signed under Biden, which permits law enforcement, DHS, ICE, and the military to open fire on and detain American citizens in such an event, has not been rescinded. Remember that? Remember Biden allowed for the government agencies to open fire on Americans, particularly the domestic terrorists, which at that time was the Trump voters, was MAGA. Now, MAGA's in control, and they're using the exact same tactic to go after the rest of America. Do you see the game? Do you see the scheme? Do you see how left versus right is complete bullshit? That you are all targeted. You are all scum to these people. You are the Goyim cattle that roam around that they want to capture and destroy you. That is perhaps why we are now seeing ICE open season on killing American citizens with absolute impunity and immunity. Makes a lot of sense. It's been long-standing theory that abandoned Walmarts and other massive structures are going to be repurposed for the detention of American citizens under a martial law situation. Yeah, what happened to that? What happened to those people? What happened to the crazy conspiracy kooks under Obama administration that were saying about this? Now they're going along with it because, it's for the illegals, for the brown people. It's not concerning to me. Alex Jones is constantly kissing Trump's ass because of the bankruptcy that he's dealing with. He doesn't see that his fruition is coming true. It just didn't happen with Obama. It's now happening with Trump. They were referred to as FEMA camps. And if you've been paying attention at all for the last 2 decades, this isn't a foreign concept. I personally have been covering this extensively for a long time. The fact that these facilities are popping up closer to train tracks is also very concerning. It appears they are building out a transnational police state prison network powered by Palantir AI, drones, robots, Golden Dome, etc., with convenient logistics and dissidents, and for those who are going to oppose the New World Order. Ha! Ha! You really need to sit down and think hard about the last few years. To all these people, to all the chuds out there that are promoting this. You are buffoons if you're still cheering this on, and it's going to bite you in the ass because that is the confirmation that they're giving this to the hands of the oligarchs. You were so worried about the WEF, but you never realized that people like Palantir, Peter Thiel, Alex Karp, Elon Musk, Larry Ellison, they're all part of it. They're all part of it. Many don't know this, but DHS was literally created for the purpose of being weaponized against Americans they deemed domestic terrorists, with justification from the Patriot Act. It has nothing to do with Homeland Security in the traditional sense. We, the people, are the threat. See below for the extensive list of who qualifies on it. for entertainment purposes. And he so there's the document there. You could see all the people that are part of this. If anyone is in, you could see in the middle there, provision of personnel to support response efforts for civil disturbances. So anyone that's peacefully protesting is going to be targeted. Anyone that doesn't agree with censorship is going to be targeted. Anyone that disagrees with partaking, the Israel's takeover of the United States is targeted. That's what's happening here. It's a takeover. It's not dealing with immigrants. It's not dealing with mass deportation. We know from the numbers that the mass deportation is significantly lower than the Obama, the Bush, and the Clinton years. So if ICE was created in 2003 under George W. Bush, how did Bill Clinton do mass deportations? Let the chuds figure that out. Here's a video from this woman here, and she's going to explain about it.
Listen up. Do y'all remember back in 2020 and 2021 when we were talking about FEMA camps and how they were popping up everywhere? There was even videos going around that people were thinking Walmarts were closing down and becoming these FEMA camps as well. Everyone was believing that, right? Because it seemed like our government was trying to control us, with the you-know-whats. The only difference from back then was we didn't have these rogue officers going around and terrorizing people. But now we do. And now we hear that ICE is buying mega warehouse detention centers across the U.S. Now this is a map of where these warehouses will be built. Now I want to show you another map. These little red lines are Amtrak routes, trains. And they so happen to be everywhere that these little red dots are. Not only that, but look at just the railroad map. So why is it a couple of years ago people were believing that this was actually happening? But we are literally watching our country become a police state with surveillance systems. Huge detention centers being built all around the railroads. And everybody just ignores it because they think they don't have to worry about it. If you have read your Bible, you know what times we are in right now. And you also know that there is going to be a beast system, and we know that is being built right now. And during tribulation, persecution is going to happen, even here. If you are a believer in Jesus Christ and you don't find any of this alarming, you need to read your Bible a little bit more. And if you do not have a relationship with Jesus Christ, you need to get one now. The Bible says that if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe that He died, was buried, and rose again for the remission of your sins, you will be saved. Don't wait until it's too late.
There you go. How anyone can look at that and not just be appalled by this mass system that they're creating. And for decades, they've been trying to resurrect this, and it took Donald Trump, of all people. And that's possibly why they allowed him to become president at this time. Tried everything to stop him from getting elected, all the lawfare tactics that they thrown against him. They threw everything but the kitchen sink, and then they allowed him to become president. Why was that the case? They tried to do an assassination attempt twice on the man. And now he's president. He doesn't care about the assassination attempts. He doesn't care about going back there. He's now looking forward to this. That's probably why he's president. That's why MAGA was allowed to happen. It really is just sick. It's unconstitutional. And yeah, it is kind of unchristian. And considering these politicians, talk about their religious affairs and, gloat themselves as being, really in touch with, Jesus and God and the Bible. Do you think that this is a Christian move, that we're creating this network that almost seems like human trafficking? Detainment facilities near train tracks that we can just massively segregate people, we can detain people, we can throw them in prison, call them a domestic terrorist and restrict them of their rights, because thanks to Obama getting rid of that act, you can do that. You can just call someone a terrorist in America and you don't get any constitutional freedoms. You don't get the liberty and justice that your forefathers and your ancestors fought for the independence of America. So, yeah, this is America on its deathbed and being taken over by these lunatics, by lunatics that are so mentally deranged and just sinister, psychotic, sociopathic, into building this technological fascist state. It is literally a digitized Auschwitz that they want to impose on all of you.